Okay, we're ready to go now. Mike Lang, can we have a roll call, please?
Mayor Sagata,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Schuster, Commissioner Chatterley,
Present.
Commissioner Chavez,
Present.
Commissioner Giacomo,
Present.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to thank everyone for being in attendance today. We do have a couple in the lobby. Thank you for coming out. Our next meeting will be Tuesday, April 28th, 6 p.m.
Lindy Schuster has joined.
Hey, Lindy.
Hey.
We've done roll call, but we'll count you here.
Oh, okay, good.
All right. Okay, so like I said, next meeting will be Tuesday, April 28th, 6 p.m. here in the chambers, or abbreviated, however that plays out. And at this time, we do have a proclamation we'd like to read. It is a proclamation for National Telecommunicators Week, April 12th through the 18th, 2020. Whereas emergencies can occur at any time that require police, fire, or emergency medical services. And whereas when an emergency occurs, the prompt response of emergency services is critical to the protection of life and preservation of property. And whereas the safety of our police officers and firefighters is dependent upon the quality and accuracy of information obtained from citizens who telephone the City of Raton Dispatch Center. And whereas public safety telecommunicators are the first and most critical contact our citizens have with emergency services. And whereas public safety telecommunicators are the single vital link for our police officers and firefighters by monitoring their activities by radio, providing them information, and ensuring their safety. And whereas the City of Raton telecommunicators have contributed substantially to the apprehension of criminals, suppression of fires, and treatment of patients. And whereas each dispatcher has exhibited compassion, understanding, and professionalism during the performance of their job in the past year. Now therefore do I, James Neal Sagata Jr., Mayor of the City of Raton, New Mexico, do hereby proclaim the week of April 12th through April 18th, 2020, Telecommunicators Week in the City of Raton in honor of our telecommunicators whose diligence and professionalism keep our city and citizens safe. In witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and seal and cause the seal of the City of Raton to be affixed this 14th day of April 2020. And we do have April here from our force, and we will present this to her in a safe way here. All right, thank you. We appreciate everything you do. Okay. At this time, we will move to item 4, comments from the general public. And I do see some folks in the lobby. So, Jason, if you could show them in, please.
Sir.
Good evening.
Hi.
So my name is Pat Walsh, and I am a Raton resident. And the reason that I'm here is that I want to express in my own voice a petition that was presented to the commission, I believe, about a couple of weeks ago. And at that time, there was no public comment allowed because of the coronavirus. So I felt it was important to at least say it in my own voice and have it on the record. So that's why I'm here this evening. The petition reads, "To the City of Raton and local court officials, we, the undersigned, request that you act immediately to prevent loose dogs in Raton. We are horrified by the bloody dog attack on a Raton woman in a public alley on March 2nd, 2020. The dog mauled her head, scalp, and arms, breaking both arms. She had to be airlifted out to a hospital for multiple surgeries. If not for the intervention of the woman's neighbors, she might easily have been killed. She will require long-term rehabilitation for her wounds and psychological trauma. Here is the action we request. City officials should make it clear that no one is above the law. Law enforcement officers, including city police and city animal control, should enforce existing laws to stop the presence of loose dogs who are unpredictable, potentially dangerous, and a liability. Lax enforcement has led to this situation. Officers should be directed to cite offenders whenever possible. These citations should be taken seriously by the local courts, with offenders prosecuted and punished accordingly under the law. The city should return to a staff of 2 full-time animal control officers instead of the current situation of 1 full-time officer and 1 half-time officer. And finally, city officials need to recognize this situation is creating bad publicity for Raton, especially on social media. Many people seeking a new place to live want safe, walkable communities. And in fact, some of the Raton, New Mexico Your Pass to promotion for the town advertises Raton as a walkable community. The other thing I wanted to include was a comment by Laura Brewer. When she signed the petition was done in paper and online, and this was happening right about the time that the social distancing requirements were coming into play. So we didn't go out and knock on doors to get signatures. We did, however, open it up to an online petition. Laura said, "This has been a long-time problem for Raton. How can we invite possible new residents to make Raton their home when we have dangerous dogs running loose attacking people? I know of several who have been attacked over the years, and nothing is done." So as I said, I wanted to present this in person and also to ask the commission, by the way, I'm sorry I forgot to acknowledge you all, I apologize, Mr. Mayor, commission members. I did want to ask if you've had any discussions about this and what potential action you may be looking at taking.
Mr. Mayor, do you want to respond, or do you want me to respond real quick? Or?
Yeah, I can respond. I have met with Pat, and we have talked about the concerns. We've also included the police department, and we've evaluated the concerns and the information given. I think the thing I would say is that no one at the city of Raton believes that anybody is above the law. We equally enforce the law. I think our enforcement personnel do a good job of that. We have a challenge, and we've worked with the Humane Society as far as trying to, and the commission, as far as adopting an ordinance and working to change some of the habits of pet owners who are not responsible pet owners. The city puts an effort into, we have the ordinance and we enforce the ordinance. And so I would just add that information. And outside of that, we want to work cooperatively with concerned citizens. And this is an unfortunate circumstance that I think resulted in the petition and the concerns brought forward. But it is a result of a pet owner who does not take responsibility. And we want to ultimately work to correct that of anyone. There are lots of responsible pet owners in Raton. I'd say the vast majority, but there are also irresponsible pet owners.
All right, thank you. And I just would respond, Ms. Walsh, by, nobody here is more upset about that happening than I am. I'm a dog lover. We sometimes have had to pick our dogs up when we've been out for a walk because of loose dogs. On the same hand, we're we're a community that's trying to provide the best services that we can. We're currently about 4 police officers shy of being full. And finding another animal control officer, which I think we would all like to do, it was hard enough finding the replacement that we have. So it's not something that we're taking lightly, believe me. Please believe that. We are going to try and make an effort to address this and do it with the resources that we have. Alrighty? But we do hear you, and we understand. And no one should ever be attacked like that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and Mr. City Manager. I don't know the correct titles here. And I did want to just do a quick PS because I realized that I forgot to mention that we had about 3 dozen, actually more than 3 dozen signatures of city residents plus some additional signatures of people who live on the fringes of town. So I want to thank you very much for your willingness to consider this whole situation. And despite all the strangeness that we're living through right now, I felt it was an important topic that shouldn't get lost in the shuffle.
Sure.
So I do appreciate your time.
I agree with that. Fellow commissioners, any comments?
This is Ron Chavez. Just to agree that we are working on this. We currently passed the animal ordinance that was given to us a year ago or so. And like everybody else, we are concerned with this problem, and I think we're working on it as best as we can at this time.
Thank you, Ron.
That's it.
All righty. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, folks.
Don't see anyone else out there, so we will move on to the business part of the meeting. Item 5A, approval of March 24th, 2020 regular commission meeting minutes. I believe you all have had a chance to read them.
This is Commissioner Chatterley. I'll make a motion to approve the March 24th, 2020 regular minutes.
I'll second it. Giacomo.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes as published. Is there any further comment? Michael Ann, can we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Chatterley,
Yes.
Commissioner Giacomo,
Yes.
Commissioner Chavez,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Schuster,
Yes.
and Mayor Sagata.
Yes. Thank you. Item B, deliberate and act on resolution 2020 declaring a health emergency for the city of Raton. Mr. Berry?
Mayor and Commission, the city clerk has prepared the resolution 2020-20 declaring a health emergency for the city of Raton. We carefully considered bringing this declaration to the city commission, and it really is a result of recommendations that we received through New Mexico Municipal League and the administration that said every municipality really should do this due to the COVID-19 coronavirus situation. So now is the time that we would like to put this in front of the commission for your consideration, and it is related to the coronavirus. I would point out that we have no confirmed positive tests in the municipality of Raton, but I would expect that it is a situation that is affecting us currently. It's greatly affected how businesses operate. It affects how public agencies operate. It has resulted in the situation that you see here tonight, where we're operating a meeting in a much different fashion than we have previously. And even though we don't have a confirmed case of that in our community, it still has a significant impact. And of course, very contagious disease. I would think that at some point sooner or later we are dealing with that. And so this is a declaration that would put the city in line with other public agencies as far as being able to respond appropriately, and also being open to the resources that would be available, whether that's through a federal source or a state source. So with that, Mayor, I will answer any questions, or City Clerk is available for questions.
Any questions for Mr. Berry or Ms. Antonucci?
Not at this time.
None here.
Any?
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2020-20. This is Lori Chatterley.
A second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt Resolution 2020.
Commissioner Chavez.
Yes. Any further commission? Any further questions? Hearing none. Mike Land, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Chatterley,
Yes.
Commissioner Chavez,
Yes.
Commissioner Giacomo,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Schuster,
Yes.
Mayor Sagata.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you. Item C, deliberate and act on City of Raton Emergency Microloan Program Guidelines and Application. Mr. Berry.
Mayor and Commission, at our last meeting, the City Commission had approved an allocation of $20,000 coming from our Economic Development Fund for a local micro loan program. And the City Commission approved a resolution which authorized staff to prepare documents and guidance for that loan program. I do want to acknowledge Jessica Barfield for her work in putting this together and bringing these documents to the City Commission for your consideration tonight. I wonder if Jessica is on the phone currently. So,
I am. Good evening.
Mayor, if I could turn over the floor to Ms. Barfield to discuss the efforts that went into this and in general local business support efforts that the City of Raton has undertaken.
Okay, Jessica, all yours.
Absolutely. I hope you'll bear with me here because I do have a bit of information, but it's all really important. So I'm going to hit on the highs and try and get through it quickly for you. But as we all know, our local small businesses are under a lot of stress and pressure right now, dealing with the COVID crisis. So I've been working really diligently with local partners, our not-for-profits and banks in the area to make sure that we are, communicating well. And I'm also being in touch literally almost every day with our state and federal representatives to talk to them about what we're seeing and how things are going. So I've created a newsletter that we are putting out. If you have a business license with an email attached to it, you should be getting that. You can also sign up on the Explore Raton Facebook page for our newsletters. And then on April 2nd, I did want to tell you, I partnered with SBA certified lender Robert Jones from InBank, and we did a Zoom conference about one of the federal programs, actually both of them. We did an in-depth look at the Paycheck Protection Plan, and then we did a high-level overview of the Small Business Alliance's economic injury disaster loans. We had 78 businesses from Angel Fire to Trinidad who came in and watched and asked us questions.
Wow.
I thought that was really awesome because we got a lot of really good feedback. But I believe that communication really helped us because what we did was say, talk to your local bankers. This is what you need to do. These are your options. And having someone who was certifying those loans talk through some of the intricate details for our sole props or those that have one or two employees was really helpful. So that was great. And I believe because we kept telling people, this is a limited fund, this is how you act now, I have some really awesome numbers to tell you. As of 5 p.m. today, Colfax County has received more than $2.5 million through the Paycheck Protection Program.
Wow.
Of that $2.5 million, $1.8 million stays right here with Raton businesses. That accounts for 290 local jobs saved. So we need to tell our businesses, thank you for acting fast. We need to talk to our local bankers and tell them thank you. Because I will tell you right now, I got called from a representative's office saying, what are you doing? All of the money, all of these applications this first day is headed right towards you. What are you doing? And it was pretty awesome to talk to them about that. So whenever it comes to our community and our strengths, it is our people. And our ability to just pick up the phone and talk to one another. Like I told our businesses here, the best thing you can do is talk to your banker you already have a relationship with. And what we found is some of these programs work for some businesses. Some businesses benefited more from looking into future expansions and possibly refinancing some of their property at a lower interest rate. And then there are some small businesses who, the payment protection program was great for. What I need to stress, though, we see all of this money coming in, and really what it's intended for is to stop unemployment from getting bottlenecked any more than it has. The money coming in is not for us to do anything, really. 75% of that must be spent on employee funds, so like your salary. It has to go back to the pockets of employees. And so that is really big to look into because we have a lot of small businesses here who have rent, utilities, and other things that are far going to exceed what help came. So 25% of the costs received from the government can go to help with things such as utilities, mortgage, interest, or rent. But by the time you pay out your payroll, the amount left over is so small, it's not going to be a big benefit for some of our smaller businesses in town. So, the payroll protection plan came now, it hit now, we're doing great things with it. But that money has to be spent in 8 weeks to be forgiven. So from the time that money hits a bank account, we have 8 weeks to get that out to our employees, which is great because the citizens of Raton are going to have that money coming to them from their employer. But our small businesses are really still going to need help, and this only gets them through that next 8 weeks. And so I continue to talk with Ben Ray Lujan's office quite regularly. He actually put me on the phone with one of the higher-ups in Washington, D.C. from the SBA to talk to him about some of the issues we're seeing with their loan program. The emergency, injury, disaster loans, they do have a small $10,000 advance that might be able to come out to businesses. But what I'm going to tell you is that money is going to take a lot longer to make it into our communities. Some businesses will qualify for a really quick $10,000. That's determined by the number of employees you have. You get $1,000 per employee, up to 10 employees, and then you max out your business with that advance. But really, those loans are more a traditional SBA loan. They're not going to be a quick decision. They're going to take some time, and a lot of businesses will not qualify. So we're going to continue to work on state resources and federal resources and talking to our representatives and letting them know what we need. So I wanted to put that on your radar. And that really brings us to my last big ask. At the last commission meeting, we talked about some of our small businesses in town. And I've worked with some that are going to fare just fine, and I've worked with others who are afraid that payroll protection program won't hit their bank account fast enough for them to keep their lights on, even though they're closed. And so what I've asked for is for us to consider a microloan program. And the way that this works is extremely simple. We asked for $20,000 from the city, and this is going to be a first-come, first-served loan. These microloans will not give more than $2,500 out, so that is the cap, is $2,500. And this is available only to Raton businesses negatively impacted by COVID-19. Someone who has had restricted hours, closed hours, or significantly impacted due to loss of foot traffic. We have to show something. And the reason that this is a loan program is very important because I've talked to business owners, and all of us are terrified about taking on more debt, but we're using taxpayer dollars to help private businesses during a time of crisis and emergency. So this is allowed under the COVID-19 crisis. However, we can't give that money away. It has to be returned to the taxpayer. So we're making this as easy as possible with the 1% interest rate and a 24-month repayment term so that the maximum payment that would ever be due would be about $110. That makes it a very affordable option for small businesses. A lot of business loans, if you only need a small $2,000, they want that repaid in 4 to 6 weeks. So this gives our small businesses a way to maybe make rent or mortgage or utilities one of those really hard costs that will allow them to keep their business, through this crisis and on to the other side. So along with the very low monthly payments, I do want to make one thing clear. These are high-risk loans. That's why I'm pushing for a low monthly payment. If a business goes out of business, is not able to see it through these times, we don't want that. We don't want to see that happen. But the reality is, we may not get all $2,500 that we lend out back, but we're going to try. These are high risk, so that's the reason for these low payments. If someone doesn't see a large boost in their sales after the 6-month deferment period before these payments come up due, $110 is pretty manageable. We're not asking for $1,000 a month, and we're not hurting, our small businesses in town. Specifically within the application, it states that in order to be eligible, businesses need to fill out a really brief application. They need to fill out their expected expenditure worksheet, which will just say, what is this money going towards? If it's utilities, what was your utility bill? If you need help paying rent, what is that? And give us some documentation. As well as proof of a business license that's current for the state of, for Raton as of 2020. And a certificate of good standing in the state of New Mexico, if it's an S Corp, LLC corporation, that's very easy to get online. These are very basic. And then we're asking for a letter from the business owner explaining how their business has been negatively impacted and discuss plans, what their plans are to remain sustainable and after COVID-19 and how this money will help them get there. So we're making this as easy as possible on a first come, first served basis to try and save some of these small businesses in town that need it most. I know I've talked more than my share, so Scott, I'll turn it over to you to comment or answer any questions.
Thanks, Jessica. I think what we would ask the commission to consider the documents that we put in front of you, that includes guidelines, a fact sheet, and an application form. I would further ask you to, for your authorization to establish a application review committee that would consist of myself, the city manager, the city clerk, Michael Ann Antonucci, and Jessica Barfield, our economic development director, and give us the authority to act on each application up to the $2,500 cap. So that's our request of the commission. And we're available to answer any questions that the commission might have.
Any questions for Mr. Berry or Ms. Barfield?
No, I think this is a really good program. This is Mayor Pro Tem Schuster. And I would move to approve it.
Okay.
I'll second it. Giacomo.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to adopt the microloan program, and I'm assuming you want to include the designated board of Scott, Michael Ann, and Jessica with that, Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
Okay. Is that good with you too, John?
Yes.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to adopt the microloan program guidelines with the appointed application board. Is there any further discussion? Michael Ann, can we have a roll call, please?
Mayor Pro Tem Schuster,
Yes.
Commissioner Giacomo,
Yes.
Commissioner Chavez,
Yes?
Commissioner Chatterley,
Yeah.
Mayor Sagata.
Yes, thank you.
Before we move on completely, can I make one more comment?
Oh, sure, why not?
Sorry, I just wanted to let you know that our local partners, the Center, Raton Main Street, and the Cash Mob Group have come together. And if you haven't heard about it, we are doing Facebook Live sales, very similar to QVC from our local retailers, and we deliver or do, curbside pickup. I wanted to tell you we've helped 2 businesses already, both of which made over $800 by doing the 2 hours worth of selling. Tonight, as we speak during our meeting, we have our crew doing pack rat. It's going very well. Thursday night we have buffalo chips. Next Tuesday we have Solano. So we're offering our retail businesses a way to spend money, even though they're closed, and it's going really well. So if there's a business listening that wants to be involved and wants to get on our calendar, please call the city office, email me, contact Brenda Ferry, Lynette Simpson, Melissa Unger will get you taken care of. So I just wanted to let you know that's going on, and it's been really great.
Cool, appreciate everything you're doing, Jess.
Thanks.
All righty. Item D, deliberate and act on resolution 2020-21, recognizing 911 telecommunicators of the Raton Police Department as first responders and the critical infrastructure of the public safety framework. Mr. Barry.
Mayor and Commission, you see some materials in your packet that
Jessica Barfield.
support resolution 2021. We do have April from our telecommunicators group. She's the manager of that group here from the Raton Police Department to give you a presentation on this and answer any questions. Included in this, you see a copy of House Resolution 1629 that's in the House of Representatives. I think discusses public safety telecommunicators and recognizing them as first responders. So I would ask April to come forward if that's okay, Mayor, and she can give you all the details on this item.
Cool.
Hello.
Hi.
So what this resolution is kind of giving 911 dispatchers the recognition that they deserve. As of right now, our classification is something more like clerical that you would find as a secretary or something to that effect. And what we're trying to do is get our people to see us as first responders, kind of like our EMS, fire, and law enforcement counterparts. The 911 Saves Act is trying to get it on a federal level. At this time, all we are asking for from the Raton Police Department is just simply stating that yes, we see all the ladies that are answering 911 calls as a first responder and not so much clerical. The overall goal on the federal level is to maybe get New Mexico on the same board as Texas. Texas did a full statewide reclassification to where no dispatch or PSAP entity had to go to their commission, their board of directors for reclassification. Texas just did the full scope and reclassified their dispatchers as first responders. So what we're trying to do in New Mexico is kind of get our people on the board to say, you know what, these ladies, they answer 911, they have to maintain accreditation, tactfully, medically trained, and seeing them as first responders and not clerical. That's our goal.
Great, I wholeheartedly agree. I would classify you as a first responder. You're the first person people talk to.
Exactly.
In a crisis, so. Any questions for April from the commission?
Ditto on what you said, Neil. They are the first responders. I think they should be classified as such.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Yes.
Okay, Ms. Berry, any further comments?
I wholeheartedly agree as well, Mayor. These are trained personnel that operate in a stressful environment. It takes a special kind of person to perform this job, skilled person, a lot of years of training and experience that go behind this, so absolutely agree.
Very good. Would entertain a motion.
I will move to, I'll second then.
We didn't get the motion. We got a second.
Oh,
I move to approve Ron Chavez.
Okay. Second, Mayor Pro Tem?
Mayor Pro Tem Schuster, second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to adopt resolution number 2020-21, recognizing 911 telecommunicators of the Raton Police Department as first responders. Is there any further discussion? Michael Ann, could we have a vote, please?
Commissioner Chavez,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Schuster,
Yes.
Commissioner Giacomo,
Yes.
Commissioner Chatterley,
Yes.
Mayor Sagata.
Yes. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you all. Thank you.
Item E, deliberate and act on addendum to memorandum of understanding between the City of Raton and the Center for Community Innovation to allow sublease the Visitor Center office space. Mr. Barry.
Mayor Commission, let me give you a little background information on this, and it's concerning the city-owned Visitor Information Center. So for a number of past years, the city has had a memorandum of understanding with the Raton Chamber of Commerce, and under that, the Raton Chamber of Commerce maintains some staffing, and that staffing staffed the Visitors Information Center and also coordinated the activities of volunteers. And really, over a number of years, we've had invaluable services from volunteers who give their time to be at the Visitors Information Center, answer questions from the traveling public, provide information, and without the efforts of the chamber and without the efforts of the volunteers, we would not have been able to staff and keep open the Visitors Information Center these years since state tourism had terminated their agreement and left. So first of all, I want to recognize the efforts of the chamber and the volunteers and give them a big thanks for what they've done. They've done a tremendous job. Now, things kind of evolve and change, and the City of Raton and the City Commission specifically created the position of Economic Development Director on staff of the City of Raton. That's Jessica Barfield, and we house Jessica at the Visitors Information Center. So part of her duties would include oversight of the operation of the center, but up until the end of March, we did have a chamber employee that was funded through the MOU and lodgers tax funding that coordinated the activities down there of the volunteers and spent a lot of time there. We actually had about 1.5 chamber employees. And so there are a couple of things that happen now that the chamber has, as we said last time, gone dark. The Center for Community Innovation did give a proposal to the City Commission. This happened at the March meeting. The City Commission did approve, and a memorandum of understanding was executed. And under that, there would be a lodgers tax allocation that would go to the center, and then the center would really fill that same role that the chamber historically had filled over the past number of years, including keeping that 1.5 employees, paid people at the Visitors Information Center and doing the coordination with the volunteers. So we see the volunteers' work continuing on. We see the same personnel. They were retained by the center, and all of that's good. That's working very well, and it's very beneficial having Jessica there as well. She's doing a great job of oversight of those operations. We have plans to really improve the use of that facility, bring more information and more services to our visitors, and see a better return for that. So I think that's all good going forward. Now, at the last meeting, we talked about a request from Grow Raton to also maintain office space there. And I think it was Commissioner Chatterley that pointed out that in a comparable situation regarding the Shooter Theater, the City of Raton has an agreement with Shooter Restoration, and then we see a number of groups that come in to use the theater. We have well, Shooter Restoration has a partnership with Al Raton as far as operating the digital film, and that's worked pretty well for a couple of years now. We see use of that facility by a number of not-for-profits. They operate under that umbrella of Shooter Restoration, and so the agreement with Shooter Restoration really operates as a master agreement, and then they provide that administrative part in dealing with all of the other groups. And so I think the directive to myself was to look at that model for the use of the visitor center, specifically with the Grow Raton proposal in the short term, but possibly other not-for-profits that are involved in activities of tourism, tourist promotion, and economic development to use that facility. So what I've done is drafted the addendum to the MOU. In your packet, you have that MOU from March that the commission approved, and then you have also an addendum to the MOU. And the addendum is a 2-page document which would detail out the ability for the center then to basically execute a sub-agreement with a party like Grow Raton and coordinate the activities of Grow Raton. We've generalized this where it would apply to other groups that are similar to Grow Raton as well. And so I will hold up there and answer any questions that the commission might have.
Any questions for Mr. Berry? Okay, I think he's hit the nail on the head. He's done what we requested, what Commissioner Chatterley suggested last meeting, so I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the addendum to the MOU between the City of Raton and the Center for Community Innovation. This is Commissioner Chatterley.
I'll second that, Giacomo.
We have a motion and a second to approve the addendum of the MOU between City of Raton and the Center for Community Innovation. Is there any further discussion? Michael Ann, could we have a vote, please?
Commissioner Chatterley?
Yes?
Commissioner Giacomo?
Yes.
Commissioner Chavez?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Schuster?
Yes.
Mayor Sagata?
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you.
Before we go on, can I interject a quick deal here? There's one question on Facebook that is asking if the City of Raton is going to assist hotels with discounting utilities and forgiving lodgers tax because of the 25% maximum occupancy mandated by the state of New Mexico.
Mr. Barrett?
Mayor and Commission, I can say that the utilities have got together as far as a couple of efforts. They have pushed back the date that they normally would have for a cutoff of utilities. They've extended that date. They've encouraged the use of online pay by waiving the fees that normally would go with credit cards. By using a credit card to pay utilities, which we went to about a year ago, essentially a business would give themselves a 30-day loan. So there's a credit element to that. And then they've also pushed back the late fee implementation to try to help businesses. Now, and across the board, it's hard to point out one class of ratepayer under the ordinance, under their rules, and say we're going to make a provision for this ratepayer, but not other ratepayers. And by having that, adopting a ratepayer-wide provision, you're really wandering from what we're talking about, where we want to maintain businesses that are going through this order from the governor's office, and they're bound by ordinance. This is when it comes to rates and how rates are applied. That is an ordinance that was passed by the city commission. And there's really not authorization for a utility board or a utility staff to wander from that rate schedule. So there have been some provisions there which have been reported to the commission earlier. I think that one of the things we do with those businesses, motels and restaurants specifically, is offer Jessica Barfield services as far as trying to really get them under some of these federal care legislation provisions, specifically the SBA provisions, which are intended and designed for businesses like that. And then also, to a lesser extent, the micro loan that we just talked about. And so I think there are a number of resources for those businesses, short of really doing something that's not going to be allowed by ordinance.
I would agree. I mean, some of these packages that are coming out by the feds and that are designed specifically for these situations, so it's something that they should be looking into.
I think the other piece of that question was the lodger's tax. So,
That was forgive lodgers' taxes because of the 25% occupancy?
Yeah, and I'll address the lodger's tax. The lodger's tax applies to an occupied room. So it would only be added on to a regular room rental. If there's no room rental, then there's no lodger's tax required or no lodger's tax collected. And then as a lodger's tax is collected, it really is accrued by that business and paid in separately. It does not affect their operating budget, their maintenance budget, their personnel costs, any of the operation or maintenance costs. But lodger's tax does not apply unless a room is rented. So if there's 25% of the rooms rented, there would only be 25% of the lodger's tax that is applied. However, under no circumstance can a lodger's tax be misapplied to cover maintenance and operating costs of a lodging facility. That's not going to be allowed under state statute. That's not going to be allowed under city ordinance again. And staff does not have the ability to say, I'm going to waive that ordinance. Only commission action can do that, but we are dealing with state statute in this case. And under no circumstance could a tax like that be applied somewhere else to cover an operating expense of the business under any circumstance.
Yeah, and as you stated, it's only collected if the room's rented. So if the rooms are not being rented, there's no fee that they're going to have to pay.
That's correct. Now, we don't dictate what the room rental rate is. That has to be set to cover the expenses of the business. They decide that. But this is just a separate deal.
Ready. Okay, moving on. Item F, deliberate and act on resolution 2020-22, fiscal year 2020 U.S. Department of Transportation, better utilizing investments to leverage development, build, transportation, discretionary grant program for funding for a railroad infrastructure investment project application. Mr. Berry.
Mayor and Commission, the build discretionary grant program is a program under the U.S. Department of Transportation that replaced the old Tiger Grant program. And you'll remember from past years that Raton had participated in a grassroots local community effort to leverage Tiger Grant funds for improvement of the rail line that runs through Kansas, Colorado, and New Mexico in an effort to keep the Southwest Chief operating on that line at a time when Amtrak said we're in danger of having to move the Southwest Chief to another line or discontinue service. This local grassroots effort has been very, very successful. Under the Tiger Grant program, I think they had 3 successful applications and leveraged over $94 million that went into these infrastructure improvements. This could be considered as a public-private partnership with Amtrak, a partner, the states of Colorado, New Mexico, and Kansas as partners, and the railroad as a partner as well. And then this grassroots effort of all of the local communities, county and municipal organizations along those sections of the line. Now we're dealing with the build program, and you'll remember last year the city of Trinidad was the applicant on behalf of all of these local agencies in the first application for build funding, but we were not successful. That application was turned down, and so as a group we are submitting an application again this year. So as Raton has done in previous years, we are asking the Commission to consider a local match in the amount of $12,500. It would only apply if we are successful in receiving the grant. If we are turned down on the grant, as happened last year, we do not pay in the $12,500. So we brought a resolution to the commission for your consideration. It says that the city of Raton would commit the $12,500 and support the build application. Once again, the applicant on behalf of the group would be the city of Trinidad.
All righty. Any questions for Mr. Berry?
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2020-22. Commissioner Chatterley?
I'll second.
We have
Mayor
a,
Pro Tem Schuster.
we have a motion and a second to adopt resolution number 2020-22. Is there any further discussion? Michael Ann, can we have a vote, please?
Commissioner Chatterley,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Schuster,
Yes.
Commissioner Giacomo,
Yes.
Commissioner Chavez,
Yes.
Mayor Sagata.
Yes, motion carries. Thank you. Item G, deliberate and act on resolution 2020-23, budget adjustment number 11 for fiscal year 20. Michael Ann?
Mayor and Commission, we have a real short budget adjustment this evening. The main item I want to point out to you is that I am requesting a temporary transfer for the work that has been done thus far on our depot project. And so I have an invoice to pay engineering analytics, but of course the process requires us to issue the check, hold the check, and request reimbursement from the federal highways. So that could take a few weeks to receive the monies. So in the past we've done a temporary transfer, and then once the monies are received from the grant, then I would reimburse the general fund. So I am requesting approval of that and the other line item adjustments that I listed there for you.
Okay, any comments or questions for Michael Ann? Did you guys catch that?
Aye.
This is Giacomo. I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2020-23 budget adjustment or number 11 FY20.
I'll second.
A motion and a second to adopt resolution 2020-23, budget adjustment number 11 for fiscal year 20. Is there any further discussion? Michael Ann, can we have a vote, please?
Commissioner Giacomo,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Schuster,
Yes.
Commissioner Chatterley,
Yes.
Commissioner Chavez,
Yes.
Mayor Sagata.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you. Item H, discussion on City of Raton fiscal year 2021 interim budget. Mr. Berry.
Mayor and Commission, in your packet you see several documents that have been sent to the city of Raton from the local government division, and specifically Donnie Quintana. He's the director of local government division, which is under Department of Finance Administration with the state of New Mexico. That's typically who oversees the city of Raton budget through the year. They have a requirement for us to submit budget in several steps at this time of year, and we will begin to talk about the upcoming budget and just talk about what's in the guidance from local government division, and we'll talk about the schedule. Now, the one comment I make before I turn this over to Michael Ann would be the difficulty in forecasting revenues coming up. As we've stated through the meeting, even though we don't have a case of the COVID-19 virus in town, we have some very real victims in town, and that would be our businesses, which have been forced to shut down or greatly curtail some of their operations. And of course, that's going to affect the city of Raton on the revenue side. Our primary revenue and the way that we pay for operations here is gross receipts tax. Now, the only thing we know for sure is that that's going to be lower, and probably significantly lower than we would see if we did not have this business restriction going on. We don't know how long that business restriction is going to take. We don't know that if we declared the emergency over and all businesses open, if their customers would be right back, they would be back to the same level of business. And we don't know how long this situation is going to take into the future until we really normalize. And I mean normalize from a budget perspective. The favorable thing is the city of Raton over the years has built a general fund surplus, which will benefit us right now, but that really will cover shortfalls in revenues in the short term. It probably doesn't carry us for a very long term, an extended period of time. So in putting this budget together, revenues, it would be not possible to forecast that, and we're really not going to see the effect of this business environment for a couple of months. What we'll see in the next couple of days would reflect business activity in February, when we really did not have these restrictions. Now, we were in winter time, that's typically a low month anyway, but we don't know then what the subsequent months are going to look like, just that they are going to be lower. Now, we can kind of gauge by demand for utilities. It's kind of related to what we talked about before, the usage of utilities by motels and restaurants. And I know that for water, it's off very significantly, their use of water. That affects sewer rates, that affects sanitation rates. I didn't have up-to-date information on electrical usage, but I imagine that's similar. And so as we get into this, we have that challenge. Now with that, I would like the city clerk, Michael Ann Antonucci, to address the guidance that's given to us by local government division and what we're looking at for a schedule.
Mayor and Commission, as you're familiar with our process in the past, we usually will conduct a couple public hearings, which we could still certainly do that. But our process requires us to prepare a budget and submit an approved interim budget by June 1st. So as the city manager discussed, it's going to be very difficult to forecast that critical revenue source of GRT. And so the Department of Finance has issued a memo with budget preparation and submission guidelines. And so what they're proposing, and I mean, we can certainly still follow the same process as we have in the past, but the key is getting something in by the June 1st deadline. And so what they're proposing is that municipalities could potentially upload the same budget that we have for this year into the LGBMS system in order to meet that timeliness requirement. And then we would still have the month of June to work on a budget, and also July, which we would have to submit a final budget by July 31st. So, like I said, they are going to give us that option, but it is entirely up to us to decide how we would like to proceed. Kind of with the city manager, it's going to be a little difficult to forecast. I mean, we would still know probably some of our construction projects and things that we're anticipating, but there are still a lot of unknowns and a lot of uncertainty. We don't know if this COVID situation could potentially push back the start dates in some of those projects, which would further affect the revenues that we typically would get in the summertime.
Yep. I hear what everybody's saying, and the big concern, I know we've kind of got a little direction from New Mexico Municipal League, and they are basically recommending that gross receipts will be down as much as 24%. So that's a huge hit. Now I've heard another number between 9 and 24, but their first initial number was 24%. So I would concur that we don't want to get too crazy here. And in fact, just uploading last year's budget makes me a little leery. So I would take any other comments from the commission.
This is Commissioner Chavez. Commissioner, I think that because of the projection that's coming our way, I think we should take baby steps in this. I think that we should, like they said, if they're allowing us to use our past budget, that we should submit it as such and then see what happens, because I believe that the revenue is going to be down so bad that it's going to affect the entire state. So I believe that we should take baby steps in doing this.
Well, and as you very well know, with any budget that we do, we try to forecast as accurately as possible on the revenue side and also on the expense side. And so with salaries being the largest percent of our budget, I mean, we put a lot of effort into projecting out what our salaries are going to be for each department, including those benefits. We do know that we're going to be faced with some increases in health insurance, as we typically are, potentially some increases in insurances that we pay through the New Mexico Self-Insurers Fund. So I'm kind of gathering all of that information right now as part of my normal process. But we would typically like to bring you as accurate of information as we have available. And as the city manager stated, there is a 2-month lag in the information that we receive on gross receipts. So the check that we receive in June would actually reflect March, which we do anticipate a significant drop as a result of the COVID. And then, of course, the checks in July and August would be probably significantly lower as well. And so we are concerned. You had mentioned that we rely heavily on tourism in our community, and so we could be further affected if people aren't traveling as well. So despite our businesses being able to open back up.
Any other comments?
This is Commissioner Chatterley. I think we all understand that this is going to be a really challenging process with a lot of unknowns. And I agree that we really need to err on the side of being conservative as we move forward. I know that it's going to be challenging before June 1st with the restrictions that are going on and could potentially, hopefully, be lifted in May, but potentially continue into May, that we may have to use last year's budget as a start. But I think we're going to have to really, like Michael Ann was saying, have as much research as possible as we move forward into that July deadline to have a budget where we look at, like you were saying, Neil, even this year's budget, we definitely can't use that. We're going to have to be more conservative than that. So as we move forward, I think that's going to be important.
Well, and I think what I was going to say is typically during the year we do budget adjustments throughout the year. So I could see in this next fiscal year us probably doing even more budget adjustments, but probably maybe having to have an extensive quarterly review.
Yeah.
And if we don't start to see some of those revenues materialize, especially going into the winter months, we might have to make some tough decisions and actually do some budget adjustments early on.
Absolutely. And we talked about projects. We still don't know if these projects will begin on time. The state has faced their budget. They budgeted on $52 a barrel oil. It's at $23 a barrel. What projects are going to get cut? There's a lot of unknowns, and I agree with Commissioner Chatterley, Commissioner Chavez, and what's being said here is we need to be as conservative as possible. I think we need to err on the safe side. Any other comments?
I think we keep with that.
Yep. All righty, if there's no other comments, we will move on to item I, City Manager's Report.
Mayor and Commission, this is going to be short. I would just have two really brief comments, and one I would say I saw that some of the stimulus checks were beginning to be distributed, and I think a lot of people in town will receive a stimulus check either within the next couple of days, couple of weeks, or a month or longer. But I would just say that I know that for a lot of people, that's a way to cover their mortgage, their normal payments, buy essentials. But for some of those people that maybe have some discretionary funding out of that, I would just recommend that now's a time when we really need to support our local businesses here in Raton. And if you can, we could work on a little cleanup of our town. That's a good, one of the best ways that we can recover. Buy a little paint, and it's getting into springtime, and buy that locally. But let's support our businesses, try to clean up town. That's essential to what Raton's future looks like, is supporting these businesses, but really, making our town presentable is something we can do too. So if people have, a little discretionary funding, that's a good thing. And as we talked about, we've really changed our direction on economic development to really support of our local businesses, and put a big effort into that. So we would ask the community to do that as well. I have one other thing to mention, Mayor. Next Tuesday will be the last day at the City of Raton for Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell has been the general manager of Raton Waterworks for 24 years. That's rare that happens anymore. Over 2 stints, he's worked a total of 29 years at the City of Raton. Under normal circumstances, we would have him here tonight and really recognize that. We intend to come back and do that when we get back into some normal times.
Absolutely.
Dan has been the rock at the City of Raton all of these years, and his contribution really is hard to put into words, just how significant that has been. And so I do have one suggestion for the commission. Dan right now is wrapping up, working on a couple of projects. One of those is the Lake Maloya, the Maloya Dam project that we talked about. Can we change the name to Dam Campbell? Is that possible? Dam Campbell? We can think about it.
We'll think about it.
That's all I have, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Berry. Any comments from the commission?
This is Commissioner Chatterley. I just want to express my gratitude to all of our essential personnel and business owners in the area who are working within the COVID-19 restrictions to help all of our residents and other business owners during this time. I just appreciate you all.
Thank you. Anybody else? I would just echo the comments made by Mr. Berry. Please support your local businesses during this time if you can at all. It's been tough for them, it's been tough for all of us, and every little bit helps. So just thank you so much. We have no other business before us. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you. All right, guys.